Hey guys, welcome back to more Just Know HOA stories. In this video, a homeowner association sent agents to my river property to confiscate my land. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. So I live in South Africa and I love the property that I bought here years ago. I searched for a long while before finding a place that I really love due to one big restriction that I had set for myself. I would not move into an area if there was an HOA in it. That for me was not just a red flag, but an automatic disqualification. Aside from stories I heard from friends and families that had issues with HOAs, I knew from other sources that the ones here were not a good thing to be a part of. And well, that boiled down to one big thing, which is corruption. I knew that HOAs could make rules and get away with doing things to their residents because of the simple fact that they had money. They could use that money to bribe whoever they needed to get away with things. I did not want to get involved in that kind of life, so I looked for a house that was not part of one. I did find that property that I love and created a very comfortable life for myself here. The biggest upside is that I live on a river property and can sit right by the water whenever I need. When I first moved here, it was clear that nobody had for a while and the land could use some work. I was willing to do that and turned a lot of overgrown area into a great thing. I created a stone path that leads directly from my house to the water, and I built the dock with my own two hands and knowledge I was only getting from YouTube videos and books. This is actually my second dock after my first one did not do such a great job. Now, the area is great for relaxing and even having the occasional outdoor nap. I can close my eyes and just listen to the river or the birds and feel one with nature. My joy and peaceful life lasted a few years with no issues or complaints. Then two men showed up on my property, and these were some of the most intimidating guys I've seen in my life. They were huge and looked like they went to gyms to eat the equipment and not just work out with them. I cannot explain the fear and nauseous feeling that came over me when I'm relaxing outside 1 minute and then have these two guys standing over me looking ready to hurt me. I questioned who they were and they told me they were property acquisition agents. I never heard of that, but I assumed it was some governmental program. I pay my taxes and everything else, so there was no reason for them to be there, and I tried to explain that. That was the point that they finally decided to clue me in on what was going on. They told me that they worked for the HOA and it was their job to take property in place of unpaid fees. I started to relax because I just assumed they went to the wrong house and I was safe now. I told them that I was not part of the HOA and asked who they were looking for. They said my name and showed a piece of paper that proved I was an HOA member and had never paid any of my membership fees or fines. I could see on the bottom of their document that I had apparently signed it and the thing was not even close to my actual signature. I also knew I didn't sign it, so it must have been forged by somebody. Me, I think there is a mistake here. This is not my signature. HOA, that's what they all say. Look, the HOA is seizing all the land aside from the house, but if you don't pay, then we are going to end up coming back to padlock the house. For now, we are just gonna put up a fence. It turns out they had a wire fence in their truck and were bringing it out to basically cut me off from the majority of my property. I had no idea what to do or say to get them to stop, so I decided to make a couple phone calls. The first was to my lawyer, who I tried to explain things to, but he could tell that I was frazzled and said he'd come over to the property. He also told me to call the police and start recording and documenting everything. I guess police considered it a low priority because my lawyer got there first and attempted to get the two guys to stop and leave my property alone. He tells me to go into the house and get my actual legal documents so they can see the signatures are different. The two men look at the papers but scoff and tell me to stay back. I refuse to just stand back and let them do this, so with my lawyer recording, I go up and try again to make them back off and tell them that they are stealing my property illegally. And by the way, I'm not sure if you can steal property legally. Anyway, I know my rights, but I guess fighting back is not something that these guys are used to, so they stop putting up the fence, go to my dock, and start destroying it. I am screaming at them to stop, but they just keep going and tell me the more I try to fight them, the more things they will break. They even say that they will have me arrested or physically stop me if I get in the way. One of them made a call and informed me that the HOA was seizing my boat that was at the end of the dock. They are gonna tow it away or something before finishing the fence. My lawyer steps in and starts to question the level of authority these two supposed agents even have. Lucky for me, the police arrived before their tow truck does and stop anything else from going on. Now, normally, I assumed the agents would at this point attempt to bribe the police to allow them to keep going. Since I had a lawyer there and a recording going, I think that might have helped with them needing to play by the book. The agents told them that they were here to seize property based on unpaid debts and showed their paperwork. They claimed the HOA had the rights due to the contract. The police then started to ask me a ton of questions about how long I was a member and how much money I owed them. Me, I've never been a member of the HOA. My property is not part of them and I never signed that document. I have papers showing all of this, but instead of listening to me, they just started to destroy my property. They have a tow truck on the way to literally steal my boat. They speak to the agents more, who are now seeming nervous for the first time. Their story is starting to fall apart because they cannot say what rules I violated, plus nothing would have given them the right to destroy the dog. They were so aggressive before, but now they look like scared little kids being scolded by their parents. I was lucky that the police were able to stop the fence being put up or my boat being stolen. I was still angry about the dog and knew the HOA might come back and try to steal my entire house this time. Luckily, my lawyer was already on it and gonna file a lawsuit against the HOA so I could have money to repair the dog and money for them coming after me for no reason. What I didn't expect was that the HOA had an entire investigation done within it. Those agents, I guess, must have been pretty scared and told the police some things that raised the red flag pole for them to go and look into it. I knew HOAs were already doing some shady things here. The people running this one must have wanted to push their luck as far as it could go, meaning they started to move outside of the HOA borders in order to try and get a payday. It turns out that over the last 8 months, the HOA and these two agents had managed to seize property from 4 different people. Land, house and money. None of these people were in the HOA, but the use of forged documents and the force of the agents were enough to get away with it. The next question people might want to know is how an HOA got away with seizing property because, well, legal documents of HOA board members attaining the property had to exist. And that is where the corruption in my country tends to leak into things. Officials can be easy to bribe for an HOA, and a stamp here or somebody looking away there meant that they were getting away with running this kind of operation. I would not be shocked if other HOAs have done this or even are doing it right now. This could not end up being ignored with the 2 agents and a few higher-up HOA members being arrested for forgery, theft, conspiracy, and even money laundering. For me, it was great getting all of these updates and reading about it, but I wanted to just be done with all of the HOA drama. I just needed to get one more thing solved, which was my lawsuit. I was suing the HOA for both the dog and for emotional distress. The settlement I got was a significant amount of money and they did not really fight me much on it because they were already on a sinking ship. I was able to not only repair the dock but make some other changes that I had always wanted for my property but did not get because of the cost of things. I wanted to turn my yard into basically an oasis and the money was able to make that dream a reality. An outdoor bar, a furniture set, a new grill and even big umbrellas. I had my own personal vacation spot and the best part was that I did not even need to go anywhere. I found out a few months later that whoever was left of the HOA ended up dropping out due to all the hate and problems it was facing. The HOA was shut down and a new, more community-driven organization took its place. One that, unlike an HOA, does not have a big board making decisions and keeping things under wraps. For me though, I would still never be a part of any type of HOA or organization. I did not even need to be in one to almost lose my house and get extorted for money. The last thing I would want is for that to happen and the contract to be real, leaving me helpless. The next one is titled, "Got reprimanded for not leaving my uniform at work, so now I did not have any uniforms at home when it mattered." And this one is a brand new story from r/malicious compliance. If you've enjoyed the story so far, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support me. So a couple years ago I was in the Navy and assigned duties on board a ship. At the start of the story, I was an extremely junior service member, the lowest rank in my shop, and typically on board the ship our usual uniform was coveralls in our department, and we arrived and left from the ship when in home port in civilian clothes. Now we were moving up the river, about 4 hours underway, about an hour driving distance for a week to unload weapons stores for a training exercise underway coming up later that month. Typically, when leaving the area of the port of record, which we would for the training exercise, we are also required to have suitable transit uniforms aboard in case we pull into a port elsewhere. For this week-long weapons on load, I had no plans to leave the ship, and we were not leaving our port of record's geographical area and would be returning to our home berth again before the upcoming trip, so I did not prep my uniforms to bring on board, seeing no use for them. At the last minute, our medical department scheduled medical appointments on our behalf at a small satellite clinic at the weapons station. With no input of our own and informed me that I would have a dental appointment while there, I immediately went to my supervisor with the issue because I had no suitable uniforms for off-ship use on board and we were required to attend medical appointments in uniform. I get written up for not having my uniforms. So now there's no specific policies on which types or how many uniforms are required to be on board, but there are specific policies on having sea-bag inspections and what is required to be present for them. So my write-up was for not having an inspection-ready sea-bag available. Copy that, makes sense. When we get home that weekend, I move all my military uniforms aboard, bringing a full inspection-ready sea-bag to the ship as required and leaving no uniforms at home. Everything is peachy. Fast forward a few years and I have commanding officer's approval to miss an upcoming late-minute rescheduled underway due to prior scheduled leave in order to re-enlist. While I am halfway across the country re-enlisting, my department fails an important inspection for our deployment workups. The inspectors work with the ship's command to reschedule and they adjust the underway schedule last minute again, and now they are getting underway for a re-inspect the night before my leave ends. And the re-inspection starts the day I return from leave. The inspectors will be ferried to the ship the morning of by water taxi, and they ask me to curtail my leave a day early, buy new tickets and show up to help with this re-inspect. I informed them that I would prefer not to dole out thousands of dollars of my own money for last-minute changes to travel arrangements because of their failure, but understand if ordered I can financially do so. Since my leave was approved by the CEO to miss an underway, I would like verbiage from the CEO that my leave has been rescinded, recalling me. And if I receive such, it will make me question my dedication to re-enlisting in a navy that does not even care about my financial well-being, meaning I will leave the 6 months earlier than they expected when I get out of the navy instead of re-enlist. And of course won't return with signed re-enlistment papers. They balked of course and they had me report the day my leave was originally planned to end. They decided that I would catch a ride with the water taxi and all the senior officer inspectors for the hour trip to meet the ship. Sounded interesting. The stinger? I asked them what I should wear for the water taxi ride as all my uniforms were on the ship. They freaked out and asked why all my uniforms were on the ship. Naturally, I explained that I was ordered to do so by my supervisor and received a counseling chit for not having left all my uniforms on the ship previously. So my options? Some recently cleaned coveralls. I would take them home for laundry, ensuring I kept 2 pairs on the ship as required for sea bag rules from before my leave, or my civilian clothes. Why? Because that's what I was told to do the last time a shipboard uniform use issue came up. So yeah, there I was, a junior E5 in civilian clothes on board a chartered water taxi with a bunch of 04 or 04, I'm not sure, 04, 05, 06 in their uniforms at 5 in the morning on the way to redo a previously failed inspection. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. So I live in a neighborhood down south where all the homes are big and have long driveways leading up to the house. Not mansions or anything crazy like that, but way better than anything I could get if I lived up north or something. Anyway, since I'm the person in the family that actually knows how to cook, I became the official destination for Thanksgiving and each year have about 10 cars of family show up ready to drink, watch football and of course eat. Now that the holidays are creeping up again, I want to tell you all what happened last Thanksgiving to me and the entire family. So the HOA board changed hands and they went from being a very relaxed group that didn't care too much about what people did to then something else. I even think at the end of each year they gave back rebates for all the unused money. I would not know since I was not a member of the HOA. In the past my brother had a really bad one and warned me to avoid joining if possible. When the HOA board changed, so did everything else about them. They became obsessed with wanting the neighborhood a certain way. They were trying to start crap with people over the smallest things in order to get more money from them. I knew they had no shame when they fined an old lady for not putting her garbage bins back in from the curb the same day as trash pickup. To me, that is cruel and shows just how power drunk these people were. The other thing they wanted to do was try and push all the people that didn't belong to the HOA to join them. I had several long conversations with these people, telling them that I was not interested, and even if they tried to make the HOA mandatory, I knew the law and they could not force me since I already lived there without being in the HOA. It was a long back and forth, and I don't know why I thought for a second that they would have the class to put things aside during the holidays and let people just be. But nope, because as things got busy, they were even more strict on things. Halloween came and many people got fines for their decorations and things like that. I was keeping an ear out because in this kind of neighborhood gossip is everywhere, but did not do anything too drastic. So then Thanksgiving came and I was busy in the kitchen, having a great time with my family. Dinner went off without too much of a hitch, as the younger generation is good at stopping our parents from talking about politics and other argument starters. Honestly, it's one of my favorite holidays because I just get to see everybody happy and full. Eventually the booze was wearing off and people were tired and wanting to go back home. I heard a ton of commotion outside and followed to see that down the driveway there was not a single car left. 10 cars had vanished from my driveway and I knew damn well who was responsible. I called the police to report it, and with a bunch of cops around, one HOA member showed up and told the police that they were not needed because the cars were not stolen. Me, how do you know they were not stolen? HOA, because I called to have them towed for being parked illegally. Me, what? My family all started freaking out in the background. HOA person, it clearly states that a maximum of 4 cars can be parked in a single driveway. That is an HOA rule and you cannot just ignore it. Me, I'm not a member of this damn HOA. Plus, this is my driveway, my personal private property. You cannot dictate how many cars I'm allowed to have. Officer, ma'am, just calm down, we will get this sorted. Me, screw sorted. I want her arrested for Grand Theft Auto. Officer, the cars were all in this driveway. HOA person, exactly, 10 cars all in this driveway. Luckily, my cousin owns a tow truck and was able to remove them. HOA Karen did not even realize what she said was plenty for the officer to cuff her and put her in the back of his car. Everybody else went back inside and 2 hours later all of the cars were returned undamaged. Her cousin was also arrested for Grand Theft Auto of the 10 cars. They were in trouble, and despite claiming that she was doing it for the HOA, the organization refused to admit being involved or okay with what she did. Those 2 idiots were on their own to defend themselves in court and had no way to claim that they were doing it for the good of the HOA now. I would have loved to go to court and tell them what happened and how scary it was to come outside and see all the cars gone. They took a plea deal, which is the smartest thing I think this woman ever did in her life. They were doing time, but less than what they could have if they pled guilty. Normally that would be the end, but I decided the HOA still needed to pay and I had a nice way to get some revenge on them. One thing the HOA had been banning like crazy over that year was fences. They felt a fence in the front yard was tacky and did not look nice. They had been winning this actually and causing a few homes to lose the fence they had, while stopping others from getting one. I went to the town hall meeting, which was also low-key the HOA meeting. When it was asked if anything needed to be brought up, I raised my hand and stood. Me, over Thanksgiving I had 10 cars stolen right from my driveway. In order to protect against crimes, I think that fences and gates should be allowed at the entrance to our properties. This time it was just cars and I was able to get them back. Next time it could be somebody's house or life. I knew damn well that they had no way to counter this without admitting to being involved in the cars being stolen. Or looking like total a-holes and caring more about aesthetic than anything else. HOA, as a non-member, you're not being stopped from building a fence. Me, I'm aware and I plan to build one. I just worry for the safety of everybody else around me. The same houses being hit twice is rare and I think we need to keep the community safe. Other people started to agree, and after some back and forth, they really did not have much of a choice but to reverse their rule and let people build a fence if they wanted to. Not only did it piss them off, but it opened a bit of a floodgate for people to argue HOA rules and get policy changed. It caused the HOA to need to back off a lot if they wanted to not end up falling apart. And yes, they are still around, but this year for Thanksgiving I have a gate on the driveway just in case they think of getting revenge. And a camera, so if another HOA member messes with me, they can join their friends in prison. I have more important things to do, like getting my stuffing recipe just right before the big day comes. And before you leave, we will read one last story that you don't want to miss. It is from r/PettyRevenge, brand new, and it is titled "Don't Like My Calendar? Say Goodbye to the Family Pigs." So I had a boss who really tried hard to be one of the guys to our faces and then tried to get several of us fired by petty complaints. One rule in the business was that no pictures were allowed in workspaces. He targeted me due to my age and went after my astronomical calendar by an anonymous complaint to HR. We watched him take pictures of our work areas, so it was not really anonymous. HR sent me a copy of the calendar and said even though no individuals are depicted, so I put up a calendar of quotes from famous people on their birthdays. We saw him snapping pictures like a tourist, and sure enough, HR contacted me to tell me that since no one was depicted and the writing was small, it was okay. That evening, I walked into his office and snapped pictures of his office with the 12 different images of his wife and kids and dropped the printed copies at HR with his name tag in the picture. You would think we had removed a kidney without anesthesia. He boxed them up and literally cried at the injustice of it all. Best revenge of all was seeing him get fired for some of the same antics. I lasted until full retirement and get to laugh about it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again tomorrow.